When we think of the great ships of history, images of warships, galleons, or perhaps even the Titanic may come to mind. Yet, in the modern era, another type of vessel has silently become more important than all of them. These are the container ships, colossal, floating warehouses that carry the lifeblood of our global economy across the oceans. They do not possess the romantic sails of the age of exploration, nor the thunderous guns of naval battleships. Instead, they appear as vast steel giants, their decks stacked high with multicolored boxes. To the casual observer, they might seem plain or even monotonous. But these vessels are, in truth, some of the most remarkable creations in the history of engineering and trade. Without them, the world as we know it, the goods in our homes, the food on our tables, the very devices with which we connect to each other, could not exist in such abundance or at such low cost. Container ships are the quiet giants that underpin globalization, moving 90% of the world's goods across the seas. This is their story. The world, before containerization. For most of human history, transporting goods by sea was slow, inefficient, and labor-intensive. Cargo came in sacks, barrels, crates, and bundles of every shape and size. At ports, dock workers, longshoremen, would spend days or weeks loading and unloading a single ship, item by item. It was exhausting work, prone to damage, theft, and delay. In the 19th century, steamships and industrial ports made sea trade faster, but the problem of loading and unloading remained. Even the most advanced freighters of the early 20th century spent more time in harbor than at sea. Shipping was costly, and global trade was limited compared to what we know today. The spark of change. The breakthrough came not from a government or a naval engineer, but from a visionary truck driver turned businessman named Malcolm McLean. In the 1950s, he saw the inefficiency of unloading trucks at ports and imagined a different system. Why not load the entire truck container, unchanged, directly onto a ship? The idea was simple but revolutionary. Goods would no longer be handled piece by piece. Instead, standardized containers, strong, stackable, and uniform in size, could be packed at a factory, sealed, shipped by truck or train, lifted onto a ship, and carried across the ocean without ever being opened until they reached their destination. This was the birth of containerization. The first container ships. In 1956, McLean's converted tanker, the Ideal X, sailed from Newark to Houston carrying 58 containers. It was not a grand voyage by traditional standards, but it changed the world. The speed, efficiency, and reduced cost were undeniable. Ports began to adapt, building cranes and terminals designed for containers. Within a few decades, the container had become the universal language of trade. From those humble beginnings, the age of the container ship had begun. An age that would reshape not just shipping, but global economics, culture, and daily life. The vision of a floating warehouse. Designing a container ship is unlike designing any other type of vessel. These ships are not simply boats, they are floating grids, vast platforms intended to carry thousands of identical containers in neat, efficient stacks. From bow to stern, every line of the hull, every placement of the crane fittings, and every reinforcing beam is dictated by the simple geometry of the container box. Engineers must ensure that these vessels can not only carry incredible weight, but also endure the stresses of ocean waves, high winds, and the pressure of thousands of stacked containers pressing down like skyscrapers at sea. Birth in the shipyard. The construction of a modern container ship begins in the cavernous halls of some of the world's largest shipyards, in South Korea, China, Japan, and increasingly in Europe. The process is monumental. Keel laying. The backbone of the ship, called the keel, is laid first on massive supports in a dry dock. Hull blocks, gigantic prefabricated steel sections, sometimes weighing hundreds of tons each, are lowered into place by towering cranes. These blocks are welded together to form the hull. Compartments and double hulls. Container ships feature multiple watertight compartments and reinforced double hulls for safety and strength. Deck fittings. Special fittings known as cell guides are built into the holds. These vertical rails ensure that containers slide easily into position and remain secure during voyages. Superstructure and bridge. At the stern, the crew's living quarters and the navigation bridge are built, rising like a tower above the deck. The sight of a ship taking shape is a spectacle. Sparks from welding, cranes swinging steel blocks into place, and the slow transformation of a steel skeleton into a true giant of the seas. Launching the giants. Once the hull is complete, the dry dock is flooded. Slowly, the ship lifts off its supports and floats for the first time. Launch ceremonies are often held, with officials, engineers, and shipyard workers present. A bottle of champagne may be broken on the hull, a centuries-old maritime tradition symbolizing good fortune. For container ships, this moment is particularly striking. The ship's massive, flat deck and towering steel walls hint at its purpose, yet when it floats for the first time, empty of cargo, it rides high on the water, almost ungainly in appearance. Only once filled with containers does it assume its true, balanced form. Early designs versus modern megaships. The earliest container ships of the 1960s could carry just a few hundred containers. Their design was experimental, often converted from existing oil tankers or freighters. By the 1980s, purpose-built container ships had become the backbone of trade, each capable of carrying several thousand containers. Today's ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, dwarf anything that came before. Some stretch over 400 meters in length, longer than 4 football fields, and can carry the 20,000 to 24,000 containers in a single voyage. Their bows cut through waves like steel knives, while their decks rise like floating cities, visible on the horizon long before they reach port. Engineering marvels. Behind their blocky appearance lies incredible innovation. Hydrodynamic hulls. Despite their size, container ships are designed to minimize drag, ensuring fuel efficiency. Reinforced structures. The central spine of the ship bears immense loads from stacked containers, requiring extraordinary structural strength. Stability systems. Ballast tanks pump seawater in and out to keep the ship balanced even in heavy seas. Automation. Modern construction techniques include computer-controlled welding and robotic assembly, allowing precision that ensures both safety and durability. Every detail serves a single purpose: to carry the maximum number of containers across the greatest distance at the lowest cost, reliably and safely. Dimensions. Giants of the sea. Modern container ships are among the largest moving structures humans have ever built. Their sheer scale is difficult to imagine until one stands beside them at port. Length. The biggest ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, exceed 400 meters. Longer than the Empire State Building is tall. Beam. Width. Often over 60 meters, wide enough to accommodate nearly 24 containers side by side. Draft. Depth below water. Around 15 to 16 meters, demanding some of the deepest harbors in the world. These ships are so vast that they cannot fit through certain canals or under some bridges, which is why projects like the expansion of the Panama Canal in 2016 were driven largely by the needs of container vessels. Capacity. Measuring in TEUs, container ship capacity is measured in TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, referring to the standard 20-foot-long container. Early container ships, 1960s, 500 to 800 TEUs Panamax ships, 1970s to 2000s, up to 5,000 TEUs post-Panamax ships, 2000s onward, 10,000 to 14,000 TEUs ULCVs, today 20,000 to 24,000 TEUs. A single megaship can carry all the containers needed to supply an entire nation for weeks. Cars, electronics, clothes, food, raw materials, and more. Propulsion and power. To push these steel giants through oceans, immense engines are required. Main engines. Most container ships use low-speed, two-stroke diesel engines, some producing over 80,000 horsepower. Fuel consumption. The largest ships may burn up to 200 tons of fuel per day at full speed, though modern efficiency standards are lowering this figure. Speed. Average cruising speed is 20 to 25 knots, 37 to 46 kilometers per hour. While not fast by naval standards, this balance of speed and fuel economy is ideal for global shipping. Newer designs increasingly adopt eco-friendly technologies. Liquefied natural gas, LNG, propulsion, hybrid engines, air lubrication systems, reducing drag with bubbles under the hull, research into ammonia and hydrogen fuels, crew and automation. Despite their enormous size, container ships require surprisingly small crews. Average crew size, 20 to 30 sailors, supported by advanced automation systems. Bridge technology, radar, GPS, electronic chart display systems, and increasingly AI-assisted navigation. Engine rooms, operated largely through automated controls, with engineers monitoring performance remotely. The efficiency is striking. Ships capable of carrying 20,000 containers are often run by fewer people than a medieval castle garrison. Safety and stability. Carrying such enormous loads demands constant vigilance. Ballast systems. Vast tanks adjust water weight to maintain balance. Lashing systems. Containers are locked into place with twist locks and reinforced by steel rods and tensioners. Weather routing. Modern ships rely on real-time meteorological data to avoid storms, ensuring cargo and crew safety. Yet even with these precautions, the sea remains unpredictable, and incidents of containers lost overboard remind us of the ocean's power. Innovations of the 21st century. Modern container ships are also at the forefront of maritime innovation. Smart ports and automation. Ships communicate directly with automated cranes and logistics systems at ports. Green design. Hull coatings that reduce biofouling, energy-efficient propellers, and solar-assisted power. Digital twins. Virtual models of ships allow operators to monitor wear, fuel use, and stress in real time. These technologies ensure that container ships are not relics of industrial might, but evolving machines adapting to a sustainable digital future. The arteries of global trade. Every day, hundreds of container ships crisscross the oceans, weaving together a network so vast that it forms the hidden skeleton of globalization. Their voyages are not as dramatic as those of explorers or warships, but they are far more constant and impactful. From Shanghai to Rotterdam, from Singapore to Los Angeles, from Hamburg to Dubai. Container ships stitch together continents with steel threads of commerce. They are the silent travelers of the seas, carrying nearly everything that fills our modern lives. Major routes. Container shipping routes mirror the flow of global trade. Asia-Europe route, the busiest of all, linking Chinese ports such as Shanghai, Ningbo, and Shenzhen with Rotterdam, Hamburg, and Antwerp. Ships traverse the South China Sea, cross the Indian Ocean, pass through the Suez Canal, and enter the Mediterranean before reaching Northern Europe. Trans-Pacific route, connecting East Asia with the western coasts of the United States and Canada. Ports like Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Vancouver receive goods that supply the vast North American market. Transatlantic route, linking Europe with North America, a shorter but historically significant corridor. Other routes, increasingly South America, Africa, and the Middle East, play crucial roles in feeding the global supply chain. These routes are so regular that container shipping has been compared to a bus timetable, predictable, cyclical, and relentless. Daily life on board. Though highly automated, container ships remain workplaces for crews of 20 to 30 men and women. Life aboard is steady but isolated. Shifts. Crew members rotate in watches, ensuring 24-hour navigation and engine monitoring. Accommodation. Cabins, mess halls, gyms, and recreation rooms provide comfort, though space is limited. Routine. Days blend into nights, marked by meals, work, and the ever-present horizon. For weeks or months, the crew lives between sea and steel, their ship both workplace and a home. Communication with families is better than in the past, thanks to satellite internet, but the isolation of life at sea remains one of the profession's challenges. Ports, the beating hearts of trade. At the end of each voyage, the ship reaches port, where modern logistics turn into a ballet of steel and precision. Giant cranes, taller than skyscrapers, lift containers off the ship and onto waiting trucks and trains. What once took weeks of manual labor now takes mere hours. A ULCV carrying 20,000 containers can be unloaded and reloaded in less than 3 days. At ports like Singapore, Rotterdam, or Shanghai, ships arrive and depart in constant succession, like a heartbeat that sustains the world's economy. Shipping companies. The container revolution also gave rise to powerful shipping lines, some of which have become household names in global commerce. Maersk, Denmark. Once the world's largest shipping company, operating iconic blue-hulled ships. MSC, Switzerland, currently the largest by container capacity. CMA-CGM, France. COSCO, China. Hapag-Lloyd, Germany. Giants of the trade, each controlling vast fleets. Together, these companies dominate the seas, coordinating thousands of voyages and billions of tons of goods every year. The invisible expeditions. Unlike voyages of exploration or conquest, the journeys of container ships leave few headlines. They do not carry kings or discover new continents. Instead, they move bananas, televisions, steel beams, sneakers, smartphones, and cars, the very fabric of our daily lives. Yet in their quiet way, these voyages are no less monumental. Without them, the global economy would falter, and the rhythm of modern life would slow to a crawl. Hidden challenges. Service at sea is not without dangers. Storms. Even the largest ships face the fury of typhoons and hurricanes. Congestion. Ports sometimes become overwhelmed, leaving ships anchored offshore for days or weeks. Piracy. In certain regions, notably the Horn of Africa, ships still face the threat of attack. Pandemics. The COVID-19 crisis showed how fragile global shipping can be, with crews stranded at sea and supply chains disrupted. Each challenge reveals how dependent we are on these silent expeditions, and how invisible their struggles often remain. The Ever Given and the blocked artery of the world. In March 2021, the world was reminded of just how crucial container ships are when the Ever Given, one of the largest container ships in service, ran aground in the Suez Canal. At over 400 meters long, the vessel became lodged sideways, blocking one of the most vital trade routes on Earth. For 6 days, the global economy held its breath. Hundreds of ships were stuck, unable to pass. Billions of dollars in trade were delayed. Factories in Europe awaited parts from Asia, while goods piled up in ports around the world. The sight of this single ship stuck in the sand became a symbol of the fragility of global supply chains. Though eventually freed, the Ever Given's incident became one of the most famous shipping mishaps in history, a reminder that even the most modern giants are vulnerable. Catastrophes at sea. Though rare compared to the number of voyages, disasters involving container ships can be dramatic. MS C. Napoli, 2007. Damaged in a storm, the ship was intentionally grounded on the English coast. Containers washed ashore, and locals scavenged goods from BMW motorbikes to wine. Mole Comfort, 2013. The ship broke in half during heavy seas in the Indian Ocean, losing over 4,000 containers. Rena, 2011. ran aground on a reef in New Zealand, spilling oil in containers, creating one of the country's worst maritime environmental disasters. Such incidents highlight both the power of the ocean and the immense responsibility of carrying so much cargo. Containers lost. Overboard. Every year, storms cause thousands of containers to fall overboard. Most sink quickly, but some float, drifting for weeks or months. There are stories of rubber ducks, sneakers, and even Lego pieces washing up on beaches years after a container accident. These tales, half tragic and half whimsical, remind us of the hidden journeys our goods take across the sea. Legends of the modern sea. Unlike the warships of old, container ships inspire few songs or epics. Yet they are not without their myths. Among sailors, tales circulate of phantom lights on the horizon, of ships appearing in storms and vanishing again, of crews who spend so long between sea and sky that the line between dream and reality blurs. The ever-given meme culture, the strange cargo stories, and the image of multicolored boxes stacked like toy bricks against the sky, all have slowly woven container ships into the fabric of popular imagination. Economic shocks and global attention. At times, container ships have become symbols of larger crises. During the 1973 oil crisis, rising fuel prices forced shipping companies to rethink operations, leading to slower speeds and new designs. In the COVID-19 pandemic, container shortages and shipping delays became nightly news, showing how dependent the modern world is on these ships. What was once invisible suddenly became visible. The quiet giants were headline news. The human element. Behind every incident lies not just cargo and economics, but people. When ships run aground or break apart, it is the crews who face danger first. Sailors from dozens of nations, often working far from their homes, become the unsung heroes and victims of these stories. Their resilience and sacrifice form the human legends of container shipping, rarely told but always present. The unseen revolution. Unlike the mighty battleships of history or the graceful clipper ships of the 19th century, container ships rarely capture the imagination. They do not appear on postcards, nor do they inspire poems about the sea. And yet, they quietly engineered a revolution more profound than any fleet of war or exploration ever did. Containerization transformed the world economy. By drastically cutting the cost and time of shipping, it allowed companies to source raw materials from one continent, manufacture goods on another, and sell them globally. The very concept of globalization, cheap, mass-produced goods flowing across borders, would not exist without the silent service of these vessels. In books and studies, while container ships may not dominate popular culture, they are celebrated in academic and historical works. Economists and historians frequently cite containerization as one of the most important inventions of the 20th century, alongside computers and antibiotics. Mark Levinson's book, The Box, 2006, is often credited with bringing the story of containerization to a wider audience. It argues convincingly that the humble container reshaped the modern world as much as the steam engine or the printing press. In films and media, container ships rarely take center stage in cinema, but their presence is unmistakable in modern storytelling. In Captain Phillips, 2013, a container ship becomes the stage for a real-life pirate hijacking, dramatizing the vulnerability of these giants. Documentaries such as Freightened, The Real Price of Shipping, have begun to reveal the hidden world of global trade, showing viewers the magnitude of the fleets that sustain their daily lives. Even in fiction, the stacked boxes of container ships have become symbols of industrial power, secrecy, and globalization. A symbol of globalization. For many, the image of a container ship stacked high with multicolored boxes is now synonymous with global trade. These floating cities of cargo have become icons of the 21st century, representing both progress and fragility. On one hand, They stand for abundance, efficiency, and the miracle of worldwide connection. On the other, they reveal the vulnerabilities of an interconnected system, where a single ship stuck in a canal can shake the economy of the entire globe. Maritime museums and exhibits, though few container ships are preserved as museums, their size and utility make this impractical. The legacy of containerization is increasingly acknowledged in maritime museums. Exhibits explain how standardized shipping changed daily life, displaying containers alongside goods from around the world. Some decommissioned vessels have been repurposed into training facilities or floating storage, continuing their service in quieter roles. Their true memorial, however, lies in every store shelf filled with imported goods, in every factory supplied by global chains, in every household that unknowingly depends on them. Echoes in modern consciousness. The ever-given incident in the Suez Canal showed that container ships, once invisible, have now entered public consciousness. For days, the entire world looked at the image of a single ship blocking trade. Memes, cartoons, and headlines spread across the internet. In that moment, people realized what historians had long known. These ships are not background players, but the very backbone of modern life. They are the steel threads holding the fabric of globalization together. The human story. Perhaps the most important cultural legacy is not in steel or trade, but in the lives of sailors who work these ships. Crews from the Philippines, India, Ukraine, China, and dozens of other nations live and work together for months at sea. Their culture, songs, rituals, meals shared under steel decks creates a quiet internationalism, mirroring the global role of their ships. In them, the invisible giants find their voice, not just as machines of trade, but as workplaces, homes, and shared human experiences. As we step back from the towering hulls and endless stacks of containers, it becomes clear that container ships are not merely machines. They are the hidden backbone of modern civilization. For centuries, the sea carried empires, explorers, and conquerors. But in our age, it carries something even more fundamental: the everyday life of billions of people. The shirt on your back, the phone in your pocket, the fruit in your kitchen, all likely spent part of their journey inside a steel box, stacked aboard a ship silently crossing the ocean. From obscurity to necessity. The history of container ships is remarkable precisely because it is so unromantic. There are no great battles fought from their decks, no songs sung of their voyages. And yet, they have done more to shape our world than most fleets of war ever could. By reducing the cost of shipping to almost nothing, containerization made globalization possible. Factories could move across borders, products could flow in endless chains, and the global economy became a single, interconnected web. The invisible giants. Despite their size, container ships remain largely invisible. They pass along the horizon unnoticed by those on shore. Their work is uncelebrated, their crews often anonymous. But invisibility is part of their nature. They are meant not to be seen, but to make everything else possible. Like the silent gears of a vast clock, they keep the world turning. A future at sea. The story of container ships is not finished. As the world confronts climate change, these giants are evolving. Cleaner fuels, new hull designs, and even experimental autonomous ships point toward a future where trade remains global but less destructive. Perhaps in years to come, we will look back on today's container vessels as we now look at the great steamships of the 19th century, marvels of their age, remembered as stepping stones toward even greater innovations. The lesson of the box. In the end, the story of container ships is also the story of the container itself. A simple steel box, unremarkable, uniform, and yet transformative. Like the printing press or the internet, its power lies in its universality. From the Ideal X in 1956 to today's ultra-large container vessels, these ships have redefined what it means to live in a connected world. Their legacy will not be measured in battles won or lost, but in the countless lives quietly shaped by the goods they carry. Final reflection. Imagine, for a moment, standing at a harbor as a container ship departs. Its horn sounds deep and low, echoing across the water. Slowly, it moves toward the horizon, carrying tens of thousands of containers, each one filled with objects destined for homes, stores, and factories across the globe. It is a quiet departure, without ceremony, and yet it represents the continuation of one of humanity's greatest achievements, the creation of a world tied together by steel, water, and the steady rhythm of trade. The container ship is the invisible giant of our age, and though it sails without fanfare, its wake stretches across the entire world.